I'm personally inspired by motivational interviewing as a tool. But the thing about motivational interviewing for me, and it's not the brand motivational interviewing, it's what its component parts are, is that it's very value based, and for me personally, it fits with my personal values, my social work values, my faith values, and so I find there's a sense of integration with all of that. And it's an incredibly highly respectful way of having a helping conversation with people. And so I had a delightful time these past 2 days because it was a wonderful group of people who they themselves have very strong social justice values and a commitment to the work, and it's evident in their faces and their words and their language. But I also think that motivational interviewing, unlike some other approaches, has some soul to it that isn't at least articulated. And so when we talk about motivational interviewing, we don't only talk about how to use the skills of open questions and reflections and all of that over across the four processes, but we also talk about the spirit or the mindset and the heart set of, a sense of partnering with people, of acceptance, of compassion, of evocation, and I think that really resonates with people. It's sort of like that's why I came into this work, right? That's what people will say. I came into this work because I want to make a difference, and I want to do it in a way that uh, helps people, particularly on the margins, come to a closer, better sense of fullness about who they are as people. It's a difficult thing to put a number to. Several things in that is that we highly recommend that people go out on street outreach as pairs. So that kind of changes the equation a little bit about maybe how many people you can see or who's taking the lead, if you will. The kind of outreach that I personally think, and many of us advocate for, is that we approach each person individually and find out what's going on and what their needs are. And so if you're going to do that and do that well, and you're going to have conversations with people that are more than just passing, hey, let me know if you need something, that which is not sufficient. But if you're going to ask more in-depth questions like, what's it like out here, and what are the things that you have hopes about, and what are your current needs? What would you see as your future needs? And certainly asking the question, would you be interested in working with me to see if we can find some housing for you, some permanent, affordable housing, which is the idea around housing-focused outreach. And I just think ethically we are obligated to ask that kind of a question. Otherwise I don't think that we're really doing our job. And of course, ethically, I think communities are beholden to come up with the housing that's available. That's the other side of that equation, because outreach workers can't produce housing. They. So I guess I would say, in normal circumstances, you might be working with some people who it's kind of still in the engagement phase, and that might be a large number of people. But once you get more involved, you're probably looking, if you're full time, looking at 20, 30 people would be my best guess. Especially with people that you develop relationships with that were pretty painstaking in creating. You don't just sort of say, hey, okay, bye. You hang in there. But there is this kind of transitioning process and handoff, if you will, where you begin to, and you talk about it with the individual that, my role is going to lessen a bit, but here are some other folks who are going to be part of your circle of care and continue on. But I'm not going away, but it might be more of just it's like being a neighbor more than a case manager. Um, again, in an ideal world, if we could get people into housing quickly, then I think for people who need permanent supportive housing, then that supportive piece, is going to be somebody other than an outreach worker. And it will be somebody who can pay attention to the nuts and bolts of keeping your housing, thriving in housing, making a home out of it, and making a home in the community. And, that takes, I mean, one person could do it, but you can't spread yourself that thin and do
Mhm.
that. I have real problems with the term case management, and I'm kind of privately on a mission to see if we can change that term. It turns out that the term case management historically derived from a time when literally there were people sitting in an office managing cases, which were files, and shuffling them and assigning them and all this. And so there were case managers, which makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
But when case management became a face-to-face clinical activity with direct service, I think if you really reflect on the term case manager, none of us would want to be on the receiving end of being seen as a case or being managed by somebody, which sadly a lot of case managers operate in that role. They try to manage the person, and there are occasions when maybe that works, but it's actually disempowering, and even it's searching for words, but um, it's demeaning, to treat people as if they don't have a resource within themselves. And this all goes hand in hand with moving from more of a deficit basis to more of a strengths-based base, and looking at what can be rather than always looking back at what was. And so I think it matters what we call ourselves, and I think it would change not only the job description, but change how people view themselves if they began saying to people, "Hey, hi, I'm instead of a case manager, I'm actually a recovery support specialist, or I provide planned support to help you reach your goals." I think we have to get beyond the mentality that somehow we're the expert and this person is an empty vessel who needs to be filled with all of our great expertise or wisdom, or whatever. Because the truth of the matter is that people are very much expert in themselves, and we know that. We just don't act it out sometimes. Critical time intervention, as you know, is a form of time limited case management, ideally, over a 9 month period with an intensive phase in, and then kind of a developing the norms, and then a phasing out. Uh, but there's the only way that critical time intervention can work is if in those phases the person has been effectively connected with other sources of support, and some professional, some non-professional, but really have established a sense of place in the community, a sense of belonging in the community. And we're talking ideals here, but I mean, I think many people, including myself, when we first heard about CTI, it was sort of like time limited case management. I mean, because these people need help forever, right? Kind of thing. And there's some truth in that. But when you think about it, we all need help forever. We all need a circle of care. We all need support people in our lives. That's how we're built. We're wired for that. And so it's not like people have special needs. It's we all need this. Um, and so CTI, I think, I, I'm never too big on saying you have to practice CTI to fidelity. I think take the best of what you can. If you want to do it to fidelity for research purposes or other reasons, absolutely do it. But there's a lot that can be learned from CTI in terms of, some of the principles, for example, of just finding 3 or 4 goals or issues to work on at one time, instead of trying to cover the whole. And so focus your efforts. Um, be hands-on, get out of the office and go meet the person in their environment, walk with them on the streets, introduce them, do whatever it takes. So it's very hands-on. And then one of the things I've come to appreciate about CTI is that if you actually say up front, we're going to aim to work for just about 9 months together, and then by then we're going to hope that you've got these other connections, that oftentimes people actually live up to that expectation, and they do it because they know there's a certain expectancy, a certain time period, as opposed to saying to somebody, I'm here and I'll work with you as long as you need to for the rest of your life, kind of thing, or somebody will. That creates a different form of expectation. So I don't think CTI is the answer to everything, but I do think it brings some characteristics and some principles that we probably need to look at more carefully. Because otherwise, I mean, the whole dilemma we're trying to leave is thinking that people with serious mental disorders or addiction need to be babysat or will never get any better or can't recover and all that. And we're trying to get away from that. So CTI comes along, I think, and says, all right, one way towards recovery is to put some expectations out there and recognizing that some people, will make progress faster than others. But